This video shows how to deploy a JDistil application once it has been created. For detailed information on the JDistil framework and other supporting demos, please refer to the JDistil.com website. This is the third video in a series of 3 videos supporting the JDistil Eclipse plugin. So here we are with our completed application. So we basically, in the previous 2 videos, created the JDistil demo application. So we created the project with just to recap, we created the dynamic web project using the Eclipse wizard. And we created that using a JDistil project configuration, which included all the JDistil resources. We've created application fragments supporting the demo application, and we've established fragment relationships as well. So at this point, we've created all the code that represents the JDistil demo application. So we're at a point where we want to deploy this application. So first things first is we need to execute the SQL to create our underlying database supporting the application. So let's go to MySQL Workbench, and we see that this is our demo database. And let's go to our demo application. Oops, sorry. SQL. Here we go. So first we'll execute our core SQL, which establishes some tables used by the framework. Next we'll execute our code SQL. This is creating database resources supporting the codes module. And then security. And these are database resources supporting the JDistil security module. So that's complete. We have a subsequent SQL file to execute, which is permissions. This is going to establish all the entitlements for the codes module, security module, create an administrative user and an administrative role. So we'll execute that. So those are standard SQL files that you execute anytime you deploy an application, and that sets up basically the core the framework tables, if you will, not just for the core, but for codes and for security as well. Okay, so now we get into the application-specific SQL. So these are SQL files that were populated as we created application fragments and fragment relationships. So we'll first create our categories. We only have 2, customer type and product type. So we populate those, and then we create our application entities. And then lastly, we apply security to those. So basically, this is setting up the entitlements for each of the application fragments that we define. Okay. So now, with our database, so now again, the BWS prefix tables are part of the framework or the codes and security modules, and then here are our application-specific tables. Okay. So now our database is in place. So let's go back to the application. And the last thing we need to do, again, this is we have a Glassfish application server that we're deploying to. We already have a JDI accessible data source that's pointing at our demo database. So sorry. See, there we go. That's the JDI name. So we established that property, and then lastly we export the project. We're going to export it as a WAR file, and we're going to export it to our auto deploy directory for the Glassfish application server. All right. Okay, so we'll check to ensure that is deployed successfully. Okay. So now we can actually go in and access the application. So, running on localhost. We can log into our application, and we see we have all of the our code set up. Obviously, we have the values. We do have roles. We have the admin role, user role. Obviously, we have no data. Right. So let's go. So just for the purposes of populating the database, let's go back, and we have. Oops. And let's execute. We actually have a script that will populate demo data. Let's go back here. Just run this. This is just inserting dummy data into our demo application. So that's complete. So let's go back to the application. And now we should see data. Let's go shippers, suppliers, relationships, products, customers. Okay. So we're back to, we basically created at this point, this last step, the deployment step, which is fairly straightforward. We'll recap, but that completes creating and deploying an application, the overall process associated with the JDistil Eclipse plugin. So let's go back to application. So again, we execute our SQL to create our underlying tables for the framework, for the codes modules, for the security modules, and then we execute our application-specific SQL. So these three values, or these three files. And we configure our core properties file to point at our JDI accessible data source name. And that's it. That's deployment. Right? For additional information on the JDistil framework, please refer to the JDistil.com website.